On the first day of my trip, I was traveling alone. So I decided to walk a bit and explore Manoa Falls, which is just north of Manoa Valley, where the University of Hawaii at Manoa campus is. I started from Ala Moana at around 7:30 a.m. By the time I got near the U of H campus, it was a little past 8 a.m. I decided to take a stroll through the campus, which was pretty quiet as the semester was probably over, and it was also a Sunday morning. The campus center building looked quite new, so I headed over to check it out. There is a rec center right next to it that has a huge gym and workout facilities. I wanted to check out the university merchandise, but unfortunately, the store was closed. Right next to this monument, there seemed to be a graduation ceremony taking place at the John F. Kennedy Theater. On the other side of the street, there was a very pretty-looking garden. After looking around the U of H campus, I continued walking up the valley towards Manoa Falls. The neighborhood in the valley was so peaceful and the views of the mountain range were stunning. The area below the university campus felt more like a city and bustling. Here, all of a sudden there were far less cars, and the area was definitely more residential/suburban. Before heading up the mountain to Manoa Falls, I decided to grab breakfast. I found a crepe place in Manoa Market, a mall complex that was surprisingly large. The crepe place opened at 9 a.m., and I was the second customer to get there. I got a manna acai bowl that had local honey on top that was very nice. I also got a breakfast of Champions crepe, which had cheddar cheese, spinach, ham, and mushrooms in it. It was very well made and the crepe itself was of very high quality. The portion was large as well, which kind of justifies the price. After a quick search, I got myself mosquito repellent, which turned out to be a very good decision. I was appreciating how majestic the mountain ranges surrounding the valley looked. Little did I know at that time, I would be climbing those. I was originally planning just to see Manoa Falls and come back down to Manoa Market to have lunch. However, things changed up in the mountains later on. I finally got to the entrance of the Manoa Falls Trail. The surroundings quickly changed from a residential area to a rainforest. Interestingly, there were a lot of stray chicken walking around. They were definitely not frightened by the passing travelers. Starting from the gates, it would take me another 20 minutes to get to the falls. I walked at a brisk pace, since the trail was very flat. I stopped to take videos frequently, but it really didn't take much time to get to Manoa Falls. The vegetation was very cool to look at, as I am from a city, and have never been in a rainforest before. It said it would rain in the mountains today, but fortunately the sky was clear throughout my hike. The Manoa Falls Trail was a bit muddy and slippery from the rain the night before, but it was not too bothersome, although I took some caution not to slip. I arrived at Manoa Falls at around 11 a.m., which was earlier than I expected. I was told that the volume of water coming down the falls depended on the level of rainfall. I think the volume of water coming down was on the larger side due to the rain the night before. At this point, I was debating on whether I should head back and have lunch or venture further. Since I had a big breakfast and was feeling pretty good, I decided to take a branching path named the Aihualama Trail. Interestingly, the path did not appear on Google Maps, so I initially thought it would be a short detour going back to the entrance of the Manoa Falls Trail. The Aihualama Trail was much more muddy than the Manoa Falls Trail, and the fallen trees almost made it feel inhibiting to visitors. Nevertheless, my curiosity got the better of me, and I kept marching forward. Groves of bamboo lined the trail. At first, I only thought of the bamboo trees as a nice addition to the scenery. Later on, I was thankful for them being there, as I would have slipped and fallen in the mud if I hadn't been able to grab onto them. This trail was much narrower, and I got to get closer to a lot of interesting trees. This poor tree probably stood here even before this trail was made, but now has to endure markings due to immature travelers on the trail. To get past this obstacle, I had to go on all fours in the mud. After a certain point, I gave up on the thought of getting out with my shoes clean. I soon realized that I had to control my breathing, as my heart rate was going up quickly. It was getting apparent that this path was more advanced than the one leading up to Manoa Falls. I even banged my head on this fallen tree, as I was only looking down watching my steps. I left a video of it to commemorate my enemy. It was already getting close to noon, and I was still thinking that this trail was leading me back to the Manoa Falls trail entrance. I kept on going, but soon ran into hikers going the other way, who told me that this path leads to a web of trails that goes through the whole mountain range. I was quite shocked, and sat down on a rock at this scenic lookout to think for a bit. If I turned back, I would have to go through the mud again on all fours, which was not appealing. On the other hand, I did not have a map of the trail system, and the internet was not working, so I was hesitant to go forward. I decided to go forward, and luckily soon ran into a map to the trail system. I found I was now on Paoua Flats Trail. I decided to visit the Paoua Flats Lookout bench, which was only a 0.3 miles hike up.
He's like, you're doing fine. I don't understand what's wrong. I'm like, I hate this. Not a good day. He's like, okay. And then are you ready to go? All right. I mean, if you know it's there, you can see it.
There was no way I was going back down the muddy Aihualama Trail, so I decided to take the Manoa Cliff Trail through the mountains. The view from this trail was amazing, although it was already past 1 p.m., and it was clear that I was not going to have my lunch at my desired lunch spot. This path was going to end at a totally different spot, actually much closer to my Airbnb rather than the Manoa market. I decided to have something to eat near Ala Moana, where my Airbnb was. It was a moment where my J-type personality was deeply disappointed by the drastic change of plans, but I tried to bring out the inner P-type personality and enjoy the adventure. Besides, I had the breakfast of champions, and was not quite hungry yet. It was at this time that I realized a sharp pressure in my feet, and found out there was a paper clip stuck in my shoe. It left a hole in the bottom of my shoe, but luckily did not puncture my skin. I wonder why a random paper clip was on a trail in a Hawaiian mountain. Perhaps, somebody had urgent paperwork to do while hiking on vacation. For the second time, I banged my head on an overhanging branch while only looking at my steps. I swear I could feel my teeth shake when I banged my head. Once again, I left a video of the branch to commemorate my enemy. There was a shoe cleaning station that had a brush and rubbing alcohol to disinfect your shoes. I believe this is important not to introduce non-native species to the local ecosystem or vice versa. I had to keep going, as I was not at my destination yet. The trails here were a bit less intense compared to the trails I had traveled so far. It was already 2 p.m., but I was much less anxious, as I knew where I was, and the internet started working again. I got a glimpse to the west of the mountain, and saw in the far distance what I believe is Daniel K. Inouye International Airport. Following zigzagging paths, I was slowly reaching the bottom of the mountain. At this point, it was mostly downhill, which in my opinion was harder on my knees and lower back. I was already walking for more than 5 hours, and I really had to take each step carefully, not to drop my foot too hard on the ground, as the impact resonated through my legs and back. The pain reminded me that I am no longer in my early 20s, and should work out frequently and stay in shape in order to continue embarking on such adventures in the future when I am older. Continuing down the path through the forest, I started seeing the ocean near Waikiki Beach, which means that my journey was coming to an end. This was fortunate for me, as I was almost finished with my last bottle of water at this point. I met a cute little dog that was hiking near the end of the trail. The dog snapped at me for no reason, which was rather rude, but I decided not to take it personally, as the dog was probably just having a bad day. Alas, I made it out of the mountain alive. There was a restroom right off the trails, which was good for me. They even had an LK water fountain, which is very nice since LK means quality. There was also a shoe washing station which I used to clean off my muddy shoes. There were a bunch of native birds frolicking in the meadow. If you look closely, there are several little ones that are probably babies. I wanted to walk all the way back to my Airbnb, but after walking for more than 6 hours, I was too tired and took a quick Uber ride back. I ended up walking nearly 22 kilometers and burnt almost 2,500 calories in total. The following map depicts the route that I took during the hike. I hadn't had lunch yet, and my energy level was dropping quickly, so I stopped to get a milk tea and a piece of cake. Afterwards, I reconvened with the others, including my soon-to-be wife, and we walked over to Waikiki Beach to have dinner. You can see that people play pickleball on tennis courts here as well. On Katsu at Ginza Byron. We were lucky to get a seat walking in without waiting.